Welcome back to the Classic Game Room interview series. I'm here today with Gaz, the editor of the Guinness World Records 2012 Gamers Edition, which I have right here beside me. And obviously you are a fan of video games and a fan of Star Wars, so we have a lot of things to talk about. For starters, what can you tell me about this book? How did the idea come about, and what's involved in making it?
Well, I think, and this kind of goes back to before I joined Guinness World Records 4 years ago, the one piece of kind of feedback that the guys making the main book, the big grown-up Guinness World Records book, I guess, they got from just about all the readers was that some of them like football, some of them like sports, some of them like music, some like movies. They all love games. So they decided to sort of put this book together, and I came on 4 years ago as a researcher working on gaming records of all kinds, from high scores and speedruns and best-selling, fastest-selling, critical acclaim, all the stuff that we have in the book now. And about 3 years ago, I took over sort of as the editor of that book, and we're now in our 5th year.
5th year.
That's right.
Filled with gaming trivia, and it's very eclectic. I mean, you've got everything that you might expect, like the high scores from some of these games, and you work with Twin Galaxies, it seems. But then you've got like the world's biggest Pokemon family, and just some very interesting facts. How do you come up with this stuff? What do you? Is there sort of like a limit to the number of pages you're trying to fill, and you say, well, we're going to go out and find all these cool things, or is it just sort of spur of the moment?
Well, what we try and do is reflect all the cool stuff that's happened in the last 12 months in gaming, but do that with a sort of records angle. So everything that has to have some kind of superlative has to be the most, the best, the biggest, the largest, the fastest, or whatever. So with the Pokemon family, we found out about them by basically trolling the internet and trying to find out exactly what's going on. And it turns out we spoke to the Pokemon company about them, and they said, well, yeah, well, these guys, you know, there's never been any family that's won more or qualified for more international competitions than these guys. And we said, well, that's kind of a cool thing, you know, they're cool guys. We'd love to talk about them. And one of the things I like about it is there's all kinds of ways of being a Guinness World Record holder. You don't just have to, you know, work away like Steve Wiebe and Billy Mitchell did at the Donkey Kong high scores. You don't have to be a sort of a championship winning professional gamer. There's all kinds of ways. Maybe your family's really good at gaming as well. And that's something I think is pretty cool.
What if I think that I set the high score in Dead or Alive 4, which I'm working on right now. I'm playing it for a review, and I don't even have close to a high score, but let's just assume I was really good at that game, which I'm not. And I'm like, all right, I think I have a high score. How do I get that in the book? Is that something you're looking for? How's that work?
Well, we're always looking for cool gaming stuff, and you know, Dead or Alive, I guess maybe it's not as current now as it used to be. Dead or Alive 4, you mean the 360 game?
Yeah, Dead or Alive 4.
So you're kind of doing a retrospective review on that, I guess. Okay, cool.
I've reviewed games back to the 70s, man. That's like new for me.
Okay, well, but yeah, what you do is head to the Guinness World Records website, tell us all about it, let us know what your score is. I can't remember if it uses a kind of modular scoring, sort of numerical scoring system. But if it does, we'd love to hear it. Otherwise, maybe what's the fastest completion on a certain difficulty level? Is there a survival mode? How far can you get in the survival mode? So almost anything you can count can be the most of something.
And if you, as the editor, find it interesting and find that you've got space for it and it fits, then you would put it in the book.
Yeah, we consider any record that's been approved over the course of the year for inclusion in the book. So yeah, you could well be in with a shot. I like that
you use the word approval. What does it take to verify that someone gets a high score on one of these games? I think a lot of us have seen The King of Kong and what's involved, at least in their end, but like, what do you do to verify this?
Well, it varies depending on the type of game, and it varies depending on the type of record as well. For a lot of our high scores, particularly on classic arcade games, Twin Galaxies are your guys. You know, we rely on them, and so they supply us with the leaderboards that are at the back. We have sort of 7 or 8 pages at the back of the book dedicated to leaderboards on all kinds of games, not just classic arcade, but also old school console, more new school console. For example, Kitty McScratch, aka Elizabeth Bollinger, is a record holder in this year's book. She holds the most dancing game records, and those have all been verified by Twin Galaxies. So for that kind of stuff, Twin Galaxies are really your guys. For other records, marathons, for example, we require independent witnesses to be present at all times. It has to take place in a public venue. So there's lots of kind of stipulations that we have to make sure that the records that we approve, we're 100% confident with.
And how do you come up with things like the the world's best video game endings and some of the other things that you have in there, which make the book a fun read. And that's what I said during our review. It's a good read to sit down and see the stuff you've come up with.
Well, the best video game endings, that was voted for by our readers via the website. So I can't really take credit for claims that Call of Duty Black Ops has the best video game ending, nor indeed that I think was it Halo that came in second. They're pretty decent games, but I think there was some that a little further down. Heavy Rain, all 22 of its endings, I think is great. Ico, Shadow of the Colossus, games like that. So for me, if I'd been putting that list together myself, it might have come out a little different. But it's always great to hear what our readers think and what people love to see in game narrative.
And you do the layout, you said, right? You're certainly a part of the layout?
Yeah, I'm certainly involved in that. We've got guys who are real experts in sort of making the books sort of come to life, and they work really hard on the main book as well. Which kind of in the old days used to look a little like a phone directory, just like lists and lists and lists and lists. But nowadays to be honest, it's much easier to produce a gaming book now in 2012 than it was 5 years ago, because the graphics have come on so much. Mm-hmm. So we've got so much better things that we can look at. Much better screenshots, so it's much easier for those guys to make something that really jumps out of the page at you and tells you all about what the cool things are.
One of my biggest compliments has always been 2011 and 2012 is the layout. I find it very colorful, very easy to read. It captures the subject material perfectly, and it's nice to browse. I'm here on the Mario Kart racing page. I'll hold it up there for you. We've got first flying kart game, just some nice pictures of Mario Kart, first crossover, and then you've got the top 10 best-selling kart racing games. And it looks like NASCAR kart racing is getting up there close to Mario Kart. So Mario better watch out for NASCAR. Best-selling PlayStation kart game. These are fun facts that I find a good read, and I really have to compliment you guys on the excellent layout and your choice. Is there some, like, do you look at your 2012 edition? Do you get feedback from your fans, and then do you make some decisions on 2013?
Of course, we're in the planning stage on 2013 at the moment. I actually hired my first couple of writers this week, so it's something that we're constantly trying to do, trying to find out what our readers love, what they're not so keen on. I mean, for the most part, they love the book. It either occupies a place on their coffee table, or for a lot of them, it lives in their toilet. And I think that's great as well. But yeah, we're always looking to kind of improve the book in any way that people want to see.
Well, I was trying to, I think with 2011 review, I had a suggestion, which I didn't see in 2012, so maybe you guys just missed it, but I'd like to see, the award for the most expensive handheld light gun peripheral, because I made one called the Classic Game Room E-Radicator, which I wrapped in electrical tape and put a couple Sega Dreamcast VMU cards on. I think I have an Atari 5200 controller also duct taped to the side of it, and I attempted to sell it for $5,000, but nobody bought it. So then I disassembled it and just used it as the the Sega Genesis justifier for Lethal Enforcers. But wouldn't that be fun though? The most expensive peripheral.
We do have a record actually for the most expensive light gun peripheral that was produced for a Sega arcade game, and I can't remember which one. It was something like Panzer Dragoon, but that wasn't a light gun shooter. And effectively, it was an enormous thing that you kind of sit in, kind of a bit like this, with your stuff like this, and you have to move it. There was like a giant gun turret thing, sort of covered in sort of pink plastic and dragon sort of scales and all that stuff. And I think that went for about $10,000. So even if you had sold yours, I'm afraid we might not have been able to give you that record. I'm sorry.
Well, I will put a few more Sega Dreamcast VMU cards on the side of it and raise the price.
Pretty much, you can never have too many VMU cards on your on a gaming peripheral.
No, they got screens on them. They might be useful for something. I don't know what, but well, let's get to some of your favorite games. What is your favorite game? What's your favorite game console?
Well, I guess my favorite game of all time, and I know it's cheesy, but I just can't help it. It's a game that I grew up with. It's Ocarina of Time. So I was really happy to replay that last year. And for me, it hasn't aged. I think I'm kind of showing that I'm a gamer who's just into his 30s now, and just still can't get enough of that game. Multiple playthroughs.
Ocarina. I've heard of that game once or twice. That was a Zelda game, wasn't it? Legend of Zelda. That was on one of those Nintendo platform.
Yeah, one of those consoles.
Yeah.
It remains the most critically acclaimed video game of all time. Although nowadays a few games are sort of nipping up before all the reviews come in, sort of nipping up above it. I think the most recent example of that is Arkham City, Batman Arkham City, which I thought was a great game from last year, actually. I don't think I enjoyed it as much as everyone else did, but I still think like it's a really good representation, a kind of a nice incarnation of the Batmaniness of Batman that no one's really managed to do in those games before.
Well, it's interesting that you mentioned Batman, and you love Star Wars. We talked about that before the interview, and I'm looking right behind you at the cover of the book, and you can see the book there.
That's right. We've got both right there.
Batman and Star Wars are on the cover. So did you have a hand in that by any chance?
Obviously, I'm fans of both, and I do try and put as much of my own kind of gaming taste into the book as possible. The cover is decided by a huge committee of us, though, between me, our other editors. Some of them hate some games. I actually kind of I really like the Pokemon trainer that's on the. I don't know if you can see that there. That's on the spine. I kind of wanted him for the main image there. But in the end, I think that the Star Wars, the sort of Lego Star Wars with Obi-Wan and Anakin and Yoda there is pretty cool.
We've got the little guy from Cut the Rope.
I'm a total Cut the Rope addict. I've had to kind of go cold turkey on that.
Oh, I love Cut the Rope. And we got, of course, Link is on the cover as well. You were blocking out Link behind you, but
I am.
So yeah,
you can see his head there. There we go.
Star Wars, Batman, and Link.
That's right.
That's got to help sell some editions.